Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Glad to see you back again. I hope you're having a great day. Today, I'm going to make for us an old-timey appetizer. I'm kind of hooked on those right now. The seasons are changing. It's getting nice outside. I want to be outside. I want to have happy hours outside in my yard. I want to have people over and make good snacks. Okay? And what better snack than perhaps a snack from bygone days known as supper club days? Okay? So, this recipe that I'm going to make today is known by many different names. What I grew up knowing it as is mock Rumaki or Rumaki, Rumaki. My mom used to make this for parties, and she would use chicken livers. I'm not a fan of chicken livers. You can use chicken livers. Liver's just never been a favorite thing of mine. That's traditionally how they're made. And I have several books I need to get around to doing reviews of. One of my favorites had a recipe in for a Rumaki from 1940s, and I was looking for it earlier today and I couldn't find it. But I did find another reference to a Rumaki in a Wisconsin supper club in Milwaukee called the Packing House. In one of my favorite supper club cookbooks, the Wisconsin Supper Club, right? Cookbook, iconic fare, and nostalgia from landmark eateries. I'll have to do a book review of that. And in their Rumaki, they don't have the traditional chicken livers. They use water chestnuts, which is a version my mom used to make for her parties and her cocktail parties when she'd have her friends over in a card club. Their version is brown sugar, granulated sugar, soy sauce, and water to make the sauce. But that's not how, that's not their version here in this Wisconsin Supper Club's book. Isn't quite the sauce that I remember. I'm sure it's good. I'll probably make it. But today I'm going to share with you my mom's version. Now, I love going through my I have so many recipe boxes, but I love going through them and finding my really old ones that I wrote as a young girl. Look at this one. Isn't that hilarious? Look at the acid-stained paper and the ridiculous printing. Right? I don't write like that anymore, obviously. That was a recipe I copied from my mom. And being a young cook back then as a young teen, I didn't have a lot of the things here written correctly. And I think I even have some handwriting here that looks more like my own handwriting now. But it hits the basic things out of the menu, or out of the ballpark. Somewhat recently, because this is an old cookbook that I love, that I go to a lot, and I need to feature some of the recipes on this channel more, I can tell that this is my old recipe. That's not that old, probably within the past 10 or 15 years, and this is the one I use today. And it's called Olive Rumaki, but today I'm going to show you how to do not the traditional Rumaki with chicken livers, but you could do that still, but the one with water chestnut that my mom used to make, and the Packing House makes in Milwaukee, and then an olive one that I like to make too. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll tell you what you're going to need to get. You need to get a package, which is a pound of bacon, and cut it into thirds. Now you want to get the thin sliced bacon. It won't be marked as thin sliced, but you don't want to accidentally be in a hurry and grab the thick sliced bacon. It won't work. It won't work at all. I've tried it, picked it up by accident. It comes out flabby. It's got great potential for other dishes, just not this one. In fact, in my notes, which I jotted down here, I even put that take your time, which I can't find my one note here, but that's fine. I put on my notes, take your time to make sure you get the right bacon. I like the kind that has the hickory smoke. You don't want to get the maple kind thrown in there too, because it's too many sweet things. Okay? I double checked this recipe today, and bacon still, for the most part, still comes in pound packages. So you just need 1 pound package, although the pound part might be hidden somewhere. You need some dark brown sugar. Now, of my two recipes, they're both different on sauce, and I just made one this morning that I think is the best one, the simplest one for you. And I kind of cut the ingredients back on the sauce. So you want brown sugar, dark brown or light. Dark brown's better, I think. And you need just checking my description here, you need half a cup, okay? Half a cup of that. And then you also need a half a cup of good old-fashioned ketchup. Use good ketchup, don't use your house brand generic to make this wonderful sauce. Okay, you'll need, again, the brown sugar, half cup, the ketchup, half cup. And then you'll need, now this isn't in my original recipe or in the packing house recipe, but this time around I added a little chili queen, which is, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but what it is a smoked paprika. I get it online because it's hard to find, and I put it into this glass container for ease. Then I also added some to the sauce. A couple shakes of cayenne. Why? Why do I add the cayenne? Why do I add the smoked paprika in this new revised recipe of an old classic? And why do I add a few shakes of this regular dried mustard? Is because since you have already a lot of this brown sugar in this and tomato and the tomato of the ketchup, you want it to caramelize. You don't want it to be overly sugary, this sauce that's going to go on your bacon and water chestnut and bacon and olive Rumaki to be too sweet. Now, my mom likes it really super sweet. I don't. I like to have just a shake of all three of these when you're going ahead and mixing it in a small bowl. Now, this will make about, how many pieces? Probably about 20-25 pieces once you get this all assembled, and I'll walk you through that. But first you want to make your sauce, okay? Make it and whisk it. A little whisk is fine. You can double this, although you won't want to, because it gets a little labor intensive unless you have one of your kids or a friend of yours along with you making this, and then you'll want to make more because you'll want to eat them all. You'll need a silicone, which Daniel was here. This is one of my homemade videos. He would remind me, but you know what I mean, one of these things so you can glaze, okay? So make your glaze and set it aside in a small bowl because you're going to need it after you do your second bake. After you third your bacon, and you want pieces about just like so, I saved these for the olives, okay? Now, what kind of olives should you get? My original recipe that I revised the second time around called for a large jar, and I put in my notes, I used most of a 21-ounce jar. I don't want to do that. That's too much work. 21 ounces is a lot. This is the size of a 7-ounce jar. Now, these are fancy olives my sister gave me at Thanksgiving last year. They have a blue cheese stuck in them. I just didn't want to go to the store and get the cheap Spanish small green olives. I wanted big ones for this. So I used the fancy olives, knowing that during the first and second baking processes, whatever they're stuffed with, if they're stuffed with a cheese, is going to leak out. But that's okay. Not all of it leaks out. I used about, it was full when I started, about a half a jar. And then your water chestnuts. All that matters is you get the sliced kind. To my knowledge, they all come in the same size, which is, it says, I think, 8 ounces. I just don't want to put my glasses on. About 8 ounces. So I also get the sliced kind. You're not going to use all of these. You're going to end up with a little less than a half of a can. No problem. You can use these in stir fries. Throw them in a baggie, throw them in your freezer, put them in the next stir fry that you make. Okay? So once you cut your olives, you have your sauce made, and you have your oven preheated, I use the thicker pieces like this to wrap around the water chestnut. Okay? So you just want to put it on like this, wrap it usually once or twice, and you want to only do this in thirds with today's way bacon is put together. Poke your toothpick in the meat part, not the fat, because it'll hold up better in the oven, and go ahead and set it on your tray. Now, what I used here, I made a previous batch. I haven't, just as what you can see here. It's dirty because I made a previous batch earlier this morning. Is just a cookie lipped plate, or this is aluminum, but you could use any type of metal, but lipped because you're going to have grease accumulated at the bottom. And then I put cookie sheets up here to hold the grease. My mom used to do it in a 9x13 casserole dish. But then after you do the first bake-off, and you can do that way, you're going to have to take the Rumaki out, drain it, and then for the second bake, put it back in again. And that's kind of messy, so I do it this way, even though the cleanup's kind of a pain in the butt. Okay? So, cleanup meeting, getting all this goo, this caramelized sugar off is a little bit of a pain in the butt. So I'll do another one. And while it's really tempting to only cut your bacon in halves and do it that way, I do not recommend it. I've done it, because who don't love bacon? And the problem with that is the bacon is too thick and it doesn't cook all the way, and then it gets flabby on the inside. So you want to go ahead, and I only have got a few that I'm going to do, and we're going to pop them in the oven. I like to save the ones that have the weird end like this for the olives, because for presentation it looks pretty if this is on the top. So here's one of those jumbo queen olives. You're going to need toothpicks. I forgot to mention that, but you've probably figured that out. And you want to wrap it so it looks like a crescent roll like this. Okay? Then go ahead, stick that in there. It's a matter of feeling. Try to get it through a piece of the meat if you can. And do so. You can separate them on your pan. Put the olives on one side, the water chestnut ones on the other. If you are doing the the chicken livers, go ahead and do that too, because some people like those. I mean, I had a pate once a couple years back made out of chicken livers. Somebody else made it at a party, and I liked it. I was surprised, but for the most part, I don't like liver. Okay? Now, for your first bake, here's another one I did. We'll pretend that this sheet is already all the way full. For your first bake, you're going to want to have the oven preheated at 350. I've tried it at 400, it's too high. I've tried it at 300, it takes too long. 350 works good for you. If you're at a lower elevation, watch your time, because you're going to be shorter on the time than you are at me being up in the mountains in a higher elevation. Okay? So the times might be shorter for you. Then what you'll want to do, once you get them all in here raw, no topping on them, just looking like this, you want to bake that for approximately, we'll look on my reviewed notes here, 40 minutes. Okay? That's how long at 350 for me it worked at this elevation. You might make it work at 30, so start to check at 30, okay, to make sure they're not overdone. What you want them to be like, and I wish you could feel, and you can't feel on the internet, you can only look, is to look like this. So the bacon has mostly rendered out. See how that is mostly bacon rendered out? And if you feel it, it'll almost feel dry. Now don't burn it. You don't want the fat to be completely rendered out. That'll affect the quality and the taste. This is absolutely how you want this to look like. And you can see a little bit of the olives. Blue cheese came out on the end, right? And I'm going to put him, he's been baked once already, with these other guys that haven't had their first bake. And I'm going to put them in for 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and put my glaze on so you can see how to do that. Okay? Using this nice, handy, dandy thing, you'll want to go heavy on it. Make sure you get those corners. Now you see how my sauce is really thick? That's how you want your sauce too. So don't get carried away with adding something like Worcestershire if you like it. It'll water it out. And certainly don't add salt. Believe me, you do not need salt in this dish if you're doing any of these with olives. Just the bacon alone and the olives, the sodium in there's enough salt for probably a week, let alone a day. So you want it pretty thick, like that, on, oops, I did the wrong one. That's one that was raw. Never mind. Here's my one that's already been cooked once. I'm going to go ahead and get him on there thick. And I'm going to rinse that one naughty one that I mistakenly did that needs to go for only a first bake. Why are you thinking? Because that first bake is a rendering. And he hasn't had his first bake. So I'm going to rinse him off real quick. Now you're thinking, why are you doing that? Well, because if I put the sauce on any of these without that first half hour to 40-minute bake, okay, depending on your elevation, the sugar caramelizes first when it's being heated, then it burns. That's the bummer about sugar. If you've made fudge before, anything like with sugar and burned it, you know what I'm talking about, okay? So I wanted to do the one with the topping so you could see how much to put on with the other ones with the first bake, okay? If you were doing a second bake for all of them, that would be this. Or if you're doing the first bake, because you're doing it in a linear way, the way you should do it. I just wanted you to see both. You'd be doing your 30 to 40 minutes like this, then taking them out, glazing them, putting them back in for a half hour, and then they're done. So I'm going to put this in the oven for half hour, and then I'll take this one guy out. Then I'll let these go another 10 minutes, these ones that have the first bake that they need. Set my timer. And then I'll pull that out. Let me show you what these look like. Here I have my finished ones done with the 2 bake, right? You can kind of tell which ones are the olives. That looks like these over here because they're super round. Delicious. You don't have to serve them hot. In fact, you shouldn't. And do you see how all the coating sticks on them? It's going to make them sticky when you serve them as an appetizer like this. Great with cocktails. Now, a thing that I've done before, and I'll pass this on with you, I like to have appetizers that are in the freezer for impromptu happy hours. So you can eat these right now as is. I made these earlier. Or here's what I do. Take all these. You can do it right on this plate in your freezer, and you can do it up in the freezer that's on your refrigerator. You don't have to go to your deep freeze. Let it flash freeze, 20 minutes, say. Take it out. Make sure you're spreading it in an even layer. You're going to have a mess. Take it out, individually put them in a Ziploc bag, and toss that in your freezer. That can be snacks for any happy hour you want with hardly any advance notice. Take them out. They only take literally 3 minutes to thaw, maybe 3 to 10, depending how warm your kitchen is. And then you just warm them up in the microwave. Just a quick warm in the microwave or a quick warm in your air fryer would be okay, but you don't want to maybe mess that up because this is really sugary. Okay? And then you're going to end up with extra sauce. See how much extra sauce I have? I have about 1/4 cup. Put that, wrap that up in a little plastic wrap, and throw that in your bag for the freezer if you're going to have these for long-term appetizers, because you can take that, thaw a tablespoon of that, and doctor them up with a little more right before they go into the microwave to reheat for your impromptu quick happy hour, which is exactly what I'm going to do with this. If you had a lot more than this, you could always save this and put it on top meatloaf. When you go to bake a meatloaf, it's wonderful that way. I've heard that sauce called a piquant, but I'm not sure if that's really what it's called or if that's just what I've heard in the Midwest. So try these mock Rumaki, whether you do them with the chicken livers, which you can get at the grocery store. Nasty. I'd cut them in half so they're not too big if you do it. Or you could do them with the water chestnuts that most people like, or the olives, which a lot of people like, unless they got to watch their sodium intake, and then that might be a little, their sodium content for the whole day, right? But enjoy these appetizers. Have them with your favorite cocktail, your favorite mocktail, a beer, or even a nice cold glass of ice water, and enjoy your little old-fashioned, old-school supper club 1960s, 1970s, or 1940s, if I can find that original recipe, supper club style snack. Try the recipe. Please subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it if you do. Like, subscribe, and feel free to write a comment or leave a suggestion or if you have a question. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.